Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, November 21st, 2013 is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, if you could please call the roll.
Commissioner Dorband.
I'm here.
Commissioner Johnson, I am here. Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Present.
Commissioner Styling gave prior notice that he would not be in attendance tonight, and Commissioner Zangara is expected to arrive later. He's hung up somewhere. And Chairman Rufato.
Here. Mr. Jennings, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we did reorder the agenda. We had an item listed as, we actually had two items listed as B, and we did reorder the two items related to the Prairie Preserve area, the subdivision and the variation are up at the front of the agenda, and then everything else maintain the general order after that.
Okay, great, thank you. Citizens' concerns and comments. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak tonight on any concerns outside of the dockets for review? No, thank you. Consent items, docket number SCBA 1335, PostNet 735 North Milwaukee Avenue, appearance approval for a wall sign. Mr. Jennings, what is their business?
It's a mailbox store, shipping, and I believe you can get a post office box
Okay.
deliveries.
Great. So I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Powers. Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson, I vote yes. Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
And Chairman Rufato.
Yes. Items for review, docket number PC 1310, Prairie Preserve Subdivision, final plan of subdivision, 48-acre vacant parcel at the southwest corner of Lake Cook Road and Milwaukee Avenue. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. Staff has reviewed the proposed plat of subdivision. You have the recommendation of the village engineer who's here tonight. If you have any questions, I believe the petitioner for both parcels is present. The plat was found to be completed in accordance with the requirements of Title 17, as the village engineer's memo indicated. And with that, if the petitioner could come forward.
For an explanation?
Sure.
Mr. Smith, if you can just describe what's going to be happening here.
What we're asking for is a variance on the LAS. Okay.
No, this is the final plat of survey.
Oh.
Right. There's
The first item is the
first item,
subdivision.
final plat of survey. Any comments?
No, it's just the final plat that we've been working towards and finally ready to.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Dorband?
Nothing right now, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
Nothing.
Commissioner Powers?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Nothing.
I have nothing either. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dorband, second by Commissioner Schaaf.
Correct.
Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is yes. Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
And Chairman Rufato.
Yes. So,
They're too fast for me.
I know.
The plat itself is, the actual original of the plat is being distributed for signatures, will be delivered to the village. Any ballpark estimate?
Within the next several weeks.
So we'll forward the recommendation of the plat approval to the village board, and then both the planning commission and the board and the village staff would need to sign it.
Okay. Great. All right. Calling docket number 2013-26, Smith Family Construction, variation from Title 22, floodplain regarding compensatory storage, the eastern 17 acres of the proposed Prairie Preserve subdivision and 7.4 acres directly west of Prairie Park condominiums. Mr. Secretary.
Docket number 2013-26, Smith Family Construction on behalf of JELMJ LLC and LAS Development LLC owners is seeking a variation from Title 22 floodplain regulations of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 22.14, Occupation and Use of Flood Fringe Areas, Section 22.14.080, compensatory storage in order to reduce the required volume of compensatory storage for fill in the 100-year floodplain from 1.5 to 1 to 1 to 1 for the two properties generally described as follows. Property 1, the east 17 acres of parcel 03-02-100-051, to be known as Lot 2 of the proposed Prairie Preserve subdivision, bounded by Lake Cook Road on the north and the William Rogers Memorial Diversion Channel on the east and south. And Property 2, the parcels known as 03-02-100-031 and 03-02-100-036, roughly 7.4 acres in area, bounded by Meadow Lane on the south, the William Rogers Memorial Diversion Channel on the north, and Prairie Park condominiums on the east. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. The staff report for this particular item, I think, strays somewhat from your usual pattern. The standards for variation from Title 22 are different than your typical zoning variation. So for that reason, our staff report includes additional background information that we thought would be helpful in describing the standard by which a variation to the floodplain regulation should be reviewed. The village engineer has submitted a also fairly descriptive background memo relating to this. So he's here available to answer questions you may have. We do understand that this is outside of the norm for what you review, but we are here to answer the questions that you may have. This item in front of you is a variation relating to a particular section of Title 22. Requires, the subject section requires compensatory storage for fill in the regulatory floodplain, the 100-year or sometimes called 100-year floodplain, at a rate of 1.5 to 1. So in other words, if you are to do grading work that requires fill in that floodplain up to the point of the base flood elevation, you're required to compensate for that 1.5 times. So a cubic yard of fill would be 1.5 cubic yards of compensatory water storage to make up for the flood water that would otherwise be displaced. So with that, the village engineer is here. If you have any preliminary comments before we have the petitioner come forward.
I think maybe the most important thing to consider with this variation is the location of the property and the stormwater conveyance from this property to the Des Plaines River. There are no properties downstream of the 17 acre and the 7.4 acre property that are actually in the floodplain. That is between the property and the Des Plaines River. The conveyance system there was designed several years ago. It has more than enough capacity to provide adequate drainage for all of the runoff from this property. So by the variation of 1.5 to 1 to the ratio of 1 to 1, there would be no significant impact at all on downstream property.
Okay. Thank you. The petitioners, if you can come forward and describe a little bit more detail.
You need to swear them
Pardon? Who else is going to be speaking, Mr. Smith?
Cliff Toberman?
The two of you? Okay, so if you can come up, raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Please, no hesitation. If you could give your names to the secretary, that would be great. Names and business addresses?
Cliff Toberman, civil engineer for Norman J. Toberman and Associates. In Arlington Heights, yes, I'll give you a business card.
Mark Smith, 1130 Honeysuckle, Wheeling, Illinois.
There we go, Dennis. Sure enough. Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Cliff Toberman. I'm a consulting civil engineer. I've worked on this project for a number of years, back since year 2000, 1999, so forth, so I'm well familiar with the drainage that is present with the diversion channel, the Johnson Lake drainage that you see, the large 13-acre pond there, and actually the development of Prairie Park over the years, and as well as the 17-acre parcel at Lake Cook Road and Milwaukee Avenue. So, as John Tech duly noted, the diversion channel, and as Wheeling well recognizes, has been a very important part of the flood improvements for the village of Wheeling, is to be commended for its performance over a variety of storms over the last 12 to 14 years, most notably in 2008, with a 50-year flood, close to a 50-year flood that was managed superbly by the diversion channel. So the capacity is significant. It has relieved flooding in downtown Wheeling, and for this area has proved to lower flood levels in this area. So the most important investment Wheeling has made over the years to improve, a large percentage for residents in their flooding has been to have this diversion channel constructed, operated well working, and I can't commend it more for any village in the northwest suburbs have made a significant improvement. And as John duly noted, that the proximity to the Des Plaines River of the diversion channel is the reason it is so successful, in that the design was well thought out by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources years back, in that when your Wheeling is subjected to a 100-year flood of a large storm event, the statistics of the Des Plaines River show it actually at a 5-year flood level, 2 to 5 year flood level. Thus, that lets you drain easily your local flooding via Buffalo Creek and the diversion channel into the Des Plaines River, which is historically not at a flood stage. And that's how it works. And that's how it has proven to work over the last 13 years to benefit Wheeling. And so in regard to this project, for both properties, both would take advantage and do of the of drainage to the outletting into the diversion channel.
Thanks, Cliff. Yeah, and as John said, it being at the tail end of the going to the Des Plaines River and not impacting any properties from there to the Des Plaines is an important part. And with how does that affect those properties? It allows them to get developed in a better fashion. And it's important to note that Milwaukee and Lake Cook Road are very visual and important intersections in Wheeling. And the development that could occur there could be very beneficial to the future to improve flood projects with, the economics of it as you go on to develop that area. So that's the reason we're asking for the variance. And finding that in our research over the 10 or 12 years that the things that we're doing there are not negatively impacting anybody upstream or in the regional area. In fact, I think as it proved out in April when we had the last big flood, the ponds performed very, very well. They did what they were supposed to do. We didn't have any flooding, over on Prairie Park, anywhere in Picardy or anywhere in the area. So I think it kind of vets it out that it is working, it is performing. There's no negative impact, and the positive impact is to be able to develop some pieces of property that help out through the taxes, et cetera, through Wheeling. Thanks.
And add one more comment. As Prairie Park being a very good example of development, as you develop, you're required to provide stormwater detention in addition to the compensatory storage. So as an example, the Prairie Park West development to the west of Prairie Park. Right now, if you combine the Prairie Park properties, there's 25 acres there. The compensatory storage requirements for Prairie Park West today at a 1-to-1 are about 8 acre-feet, but detention is 5 acre-feet for the entire project. So you could see detention actually represents a significant contribution to the storage for the combined project. And to give you an idea, when you develop a property, what does that mean? That means providing a 8-inch restrictor. So as you develop a property, you actually discharge the site through an 8-inch restrictor. So 25 acres of Prairie Park development would be through an 8-inch restrictor. 17 acres on the Lake Cook property would be even a smaller pipe. So you're taking what's now as an example on the Lake Cook property, the 17 acres, you're taking a significant runoff that's unrestricted today. With development, you actually restrict that, which only improves the drainage for its outlet, being the diversion channel. And, keep that in mind. And historically, recall, these properties used to drain to the Johnson Lake to the west, to the Aptekistick watershed, which is much poorer drained than the diversion channel. One thing I would take note of over the years as we watch flood events and so forth, it drains incredibly fast. So within a day, 2 days max, the diversion channel's down. While you'll see Johnson Lake will sit for days at a high water level. So the point is, both properties are historically drained at Johnson Lake. As developments occurred, it's pulling it back into a well-drained channel, which is very important. And keep that in mind.
Anything else? No. This is a public hearing. Is there, did anybody sign up? We never even asked. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? No. Okay. We will go to the commission members. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Mr. Tack, have all the necessary other agencies been involved with this and understand what's going on?
Absolutely. And as far as the Title 22, basically for filling in the fringe, the floodplain fringe, it is only the village that has to actually approve that.
Okay, well, I just see the comments about the CRS points and things like that that could affect flood insurance premiums and whatnot.
Well, since he's on that, could you describe what the CRS points are and what impact this could have?
Well, CRS is a community rating system, and it's part of the NFIP, and the village participates in it.
Okay, acronyms really don't do much for us when we're not really engineers. The only engineers I know are train engineers, so so if you could just go a little bit further on that.
Sure. NFIP is the National Flood Insurance Program.
Okay, thank you.
And part of the National Flood Insurance Program is the Community Rating System, CRS. Okay. The village participates in CRS in order to give the floodplain properties that have to purchase insurance a break on their insurance rates. The investigation that I did with the state rep for our CRS program has told me that basically a property owner or a development requesting a variation will not have a direct, immediate impact on our CRS program. If that answers your question.
What would have an impact? I mean,
Well, if you were to issue variance after variance after variance to a criteria in the CRS program that you were getting points for, then they would take a look at that and they would say, okay, wait a minute, you're not meeting the intent of the CRS program if you continue to issue a variance for those points.
okay, thank you. That's really the only question I had.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. Does the diversionary channel actually run through your property?
It's on the border, right, it borders both the
Could you show
properties.
me where that is, Ian? Can you show that in? Because right there, okay. And the Prairie Park West and the Prairie Preserve, do those have, when those get developed, is there going to need to be additional compensatory storage built, or is the storage already there, that it's just going to use that if those sites were ever to get developed? Will there be additional compensatory storage needed, or you're going to use what's already there?
Both. We could use what is there, and if more were to be developed, more acreage on the 17 acres, there could be additional that would be needed.
Okay, so when the water drained, it would drain into one area, then does everything go out through this restrictor pipe into the diversionary channel and then out?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. I have no further questions.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you. You talked about restricted flow into the diversionary channel. Is the diversionary channel restricted into the Des Plaines River? That's just a one-for-one, just flows right in?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know that that has any bearing on this or the downstream. I know that Des Plaines River has some problems, but they were caused by other than this development. The north part of where you're of Prairie Preserve, that's what you own.
Yes.
That's what you're developing.
We are working on Prairie Preserve, and then there's the LAS, which is directly west of Prairie Park, the condos.
Right, the condos. So you want to develop that.
In the future, we would like to, move on to that.
Sure.
As things go, and in the future, Prairie Preserve, we would like to take advantage of the traffic and the intersection and at some later point develop that.
Yeah. Those two parcels, if I read or if I observe the drawings, they are in the floodplain. Are they not?
You're referring to both?
Both parcels.
Yeah, both parcels. Both parcels have partial floodplain.
Floodplain.
More so on the 17-acre parcel and in the ponds. Basically, where you see ponds,
You got floodplain.
that's floodplain.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you develop those, you're required then to have flood insurance. Is that correct? If you develop floodplain within the floodplain?
What you do is, you build, as we've done with Prairie Park, constructed everything above floodplain, so all buildings, everything, so there's no flood insurance required for any of the Prairie Park buildings. So what
Really?
you have to do is, you do have to go back to FEMA to get a letter of map revision to show the new elevations of the fill, the buildings, the finished floors of the buildings showing above floodplain.
Okay, because I was under the impression that even if you do build, even within, some part of it in floodplain, you still have to have flood insurance, but you don't. Because what I was leading to is that because the village participates in the, CRS program? Is that what it's called? It would be in your best interest to have all of this stuff flow out and to keep a reduced premium on flood insurance. I know flood insurance is not cheap.
Right, there's no, it would be counterproductive for us
Right.
to do that, which we wouldn't do and do
Yeah.
not intend to do.
I actually don't see anything wrong with granting this variance from 1.5 to 1, or 1 to 1.5 to 1 to 1. So, thank you.
Commissioner Dorban?
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Can you describe what this, can you bring this up, Andrew? Can you describe what this depicts? It's in the packet. I want to know what it's all about.
Sure. Is this working here? There it is, okay. So what you see, this is Prairie Park West. This is the 7.8 acres immediately west of Prairie Park. 2 existing ponds, a north pond and a south pond, have been constructed. And these ponds were constructed to compensate for the fill that was placed on the westernmost portion of the property. The areas here, the site has would be trying to accommodate development with 2 buildings possibly, with parking and so forth. And that is the main objective with the construction of the ponds and the fill pad.
So this is future. These 2 ponds are future.
Oh, well, these 2 ponds here are in fact existing.
Okay,
Yes, they're built.
okay.
Future construction on the
Future
pad.
construction, okay.
Right.
Great. All right, thank you. And then you talked about the comp storage. Is that also restricted rate when it's released?
Yes,
Okay,
and yes, correct. Will be.
okay. All right, interesting. Well, that's versus just restricting the stormwater detention? Is that, versus one or the other?
Right, in this case, the design is very conservative. Actually, the design is for these ponds to fill up with a 100-year flood from a storm event. And on top of that, Wheeling has another 7.5 inches of rain that falls, and basically we're storing water and restricting all of that water, both detention and comp storage
Okay.
water.
Thank you. I have no other questions. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dorban, seconded by Commissioner Powers. Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Dorban?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson, I say yes. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
And Chairman Rafano?
Yes. Motion to close. Oops, I'm sorry.
Sorry, the motion was made by Commissioner Dorban and seconded by Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Okay, motion to close.
Motion to close.
So moved.
Voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See there, look at that. It's gone. It's gone. And then you just have to touch it. And it's back. It's magic. It is magic. Do you believe in magic? Ready for next time?
Sure, I guess.
Sure.
Get going on it. Two of them.
Calling docket number PC 13-9, Adhesive Coating Technologies, 420 Northgate Parkway, minor site plan and appearance approval for exterior equipment. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. The petitioner has an existing piece of equipment related to the function of this particular facility. The desire to replace that with a newer version of a similar piece. They, in order to keep the facility up and running, they would like to relocate it. There is parking in the area. They would need to replace that parking on site. They do have some ability to replace the parking. There are some stalls that are currently occupied by a outdoor storage area. They would be able to move the outdoor storage area in conjunction with this project and gain stalls there. As you note from the staff report, there are some conditions of approval relating to the parking. There's an existing parking variation on this site. The staff suggestion in this case is just to refer back to that existing parking variation and require that the conditions of that variation be met by reference. We did not spell them out specifically, but it relates to the number of spaces as well as the design of the handicap parking spaces. With that, I'd like to call the petitioner forward.
Good evening, guys.
If you can give your name and business address to our recording secretary, that'd be great.
Mark Maddox, at company's Adhesive Coating Technologies at 420 Northgate Parkway. I have a couple associates that I may want to refer questions to if there are any. I don't know if you want them to give their names now.
You can, that'd be great.
Okay, I got Keith Herwald, who's our company engineer,
Okay.
and John Oliver, who's our project manager for the vendor for the equipment that's being installed.
Mary, do you need some spelling there?
Herwald. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you could describe what you plan on doing?
Well, as noted, we're replacing an existing oxidizer, which is, it's a piece of equipment that removes the VOCs, volatile organic compounds into the atmosphere, cleans the air basically that we're letting into the atmosphere. We're an adhesive tape manufacturer, so we use various chemicals. So in order to be in...
If you could speak a little bit closer
Sure.
to the
You
microphone.
might need to pull it up.
And you can pull it up too. You don't have to bend down.
Right. So in order to be in compliance with the EPA, this oxidizer allows us to operate. We have an oxidizer currently installed. It's, as you can see in the picture to my left, that's the current oxidizer. It's an older model. It's not very efficient via our utility use. The new oxidizer will cut our utility usage in half, and it's more efficient, meeting the EPA standards. In order to reduce our downtime, as noted, we want to move the oxidizer to a separate location that will still have about 3 weeks downtime, but it will substantially reduce that downtime and allow us to operate, which is very important to us.
Sure.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. We will start with Commissioner Powers.
Thank you. Andrew, I see, I'm trying to figure out the parking. I guess I see the 6 spaces going away, but is there a net gain or loss in the parking because of this activity? And the second question I would have is about the handicap parking. You know, there was mention about possibly 6 ADA stalls or something like that. Where are those in the property? Because I did go by there a couple days ago. I did see something in the front. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, there's a separate area. I believe we actually have a requirement for an additional stall to be striped, which is west of that front area off of Allendale. The net loss is accounted for in the existing variation. It looks like, based on our review, Once they restripe the outdoor storage area, which you can see in this photo on the right, once that is brought back as striped parking stalls, it looks like they would have additional need, possibly one, maybe two stalls. So we think that there's unstriped paved area within the parking lot that we just need to just double check maneuvering space, but it certainly seems as though we've been kind of going back and forth on some options for that.
So they're covered?
They're covered.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, the area of the old oxidizer will be used for outdoor storage. So are you taking the outdoor storage from once the oxidizer gets moved to the new place, you're going to take that outdoor storage in the back there and move it to where the old oxidizer was?
Correct. We're going to be removing the current outdoor storage area and replacing it into the back area of that courtyard type of, that courtyard area. It'll be in the back area there. And then there'll be additional parking striped into that area.
And then will that additional area in the back for the outdoor storage where the old oxidizer is, are you going to have a fence there also? Are you putting a fence back in there?
Keith, will be there? Yes, there'll be a fence in the outdoor storage, in the new location for outdoor storage, as well as a fence around the oxidizer.
Okay.
The new oxidizer.
Did we have something in the staff comments that said, we had to discuss if we were going to allow parking where the new outdoor storage area, if we were going to allow parking in that spot, Andrew?
It doesn't, based on that description, it does not ring a bell.
Okay.
No, I think that we were pretty comfortable that they could park where the existing outdoor storage was.
But what about, I was talking more about where the new,
Oh,
yeah,
sure,
in that
sure.
area.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
This particular area is one of the unstriped areas where it looks like they could, one way or another, they could probably gain back some stalls.
But we would not be parking cars. I don't even know if there's room between their outside wall and where the fenced-in area, where you have the designation between the end of the storage area and going into the parking lot, that rectangular space there.
Sure, they have some flexibility. We've looked at a couple different options. We're pretty confident that they'll be able to get back the difference. We've looked at a parallel option. We've looked at a diagonal option. So we're pretty confident that there's enough paved area either between that area or near the loading dock, near the front area. We're pretty confident we can get that stall back.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Commissioner Schaff.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Dorban.
No questions.
Commissioner Johnson.
The only question I have is actually for staff. Were permits already pulled on this? Because I see the pads already poured.
Yeah, we're in, the petitioner pulled, has requested a permit for some of the items. Concrete is temperature sensitive, so they requested this, the concrete to go ahead pending review. Of course, if they were not able to obtain site plan approval, that area could easily be restriped. But the risk was theirs, and given the temperature change, they elected to take it.
Okay, I was just wondering if we're getting in the game late here. Okay, that's all I have.
So how long would it take to construct this new oxidizer?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, and then you're out 3 weeks also?
We're going to be down for 3 weeks of operating, yes.
Wow, okay. And is there, and this is just curiosity, I see from an aerial view, there's a lot of piping on your roof. Is that reused, or does that have to be put also?
That existing venting is going to be removed and replaced with new ductwork.
Okay. So this machine is more efficient from a utility standpoint?
Very much so, yes.
Is it more, well, I'm sure you're guided by the EPA in your operation.
Right.
And so, I don't know how to say this. Does it produce a cleaner air because you're under restrictions as it is right now?
Well, we're required under the EPA, I believe it's 95% efficiency, meaning that the air going in the atmosphere has to be 95% clean. This oxidizer is a 99% capacity, so it's going to be clean air going in the atmosphere, yes.
And does that run all the time?
The oxidizer only runs when we're operating.
Okay.
So we're coating currently about 6 hours a day, 4 days a week. We're a new company. We started in November 2011, so we hope to increase our running. But the oxidizer is only running when we're running our coating lines.
Okay. Interesting. Was that oxidizer there when you moved into the?
Yes, the business that was there prior to us, we're doing the same thing, manufacturing adhesive tapes.
And I'm just curious, what type regular commercial use tape or?
The end uses are things that you'd be familiar with: carpet tape, masking tape, athletic tapes, medical grade tapes, very commodity type products.
Okay, cool. That is all I had. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I
Sure.
ask a couple questions now, because that's what triggered. Does the new oxidizer have a higher capacity than the old?
John?
I'm not sure what the old oxidizer capacity is.
I mean, you know,
I believe they're both 25,000 CP. They're both the same
okay,
capacity.
So you could grow the same amount with the old one as you could then with the new one.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No.
That's
Sorry,
all I have.
that's fine. Any other questions? Fair motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Schaaf, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson says yes. Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
And Chairman Rufato.
Yes.
And 2 absent.
Thank you. Just to clarify,
there were two conditions.
There were two
I'm sorry.
conditions in the staff report, just to read them in. Number one, that the site parking shall meet the terms stated in ordinance number 2786. And number two, that the site parking shall comply with the Illinois ADA parking requirements.
Great, thank you.
And we will have something for you to sign.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Calling docket number 2013-25, Housing Authority of Cook County, 450 Stone Place, variations from Title 19, zoning regarding residential parking. Mr. Secretary.
Docket number 2013-25, Housing Authority of Cook County owner is seeking a variation from Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-04, Residential Districts, Section 19.04.010, Residential District General Requirements, Section B, General Use Standards, Subsection 1, Garages Required, and from Chapter 19-11, General Development Standards, Section 1911.010, Off-Street Parking and Loading, Section E, Parking Standards, Subsection 1, minimum required parking per land use category in order to convert an existing attached garage to living space at 450 Stone Place, which is zoned R3A, single-family residential. Standards for a variation. A zoning variation is intended to be a method of adjustment to equalize regulations where Title 19 of the Village of Wheeling zoning has created an unnecessary hardship. The variation is designed to allow affected property owners the same rights and privileges that others enjoy in the same zoning district. In order to be granted a variation, a petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at the public hearing why their request meets the conditions of the village code, including, but not limited to, how their individual situation is unique or unusual. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request for variation meets the standards established in Title 19. The commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings?
No additional staff comments at this time.
Great. Good evening. Are you going to be the only person talking tonight?
Yes, Mr. Rafano.
Thank you. If you could raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And would you give your name and business address to the recording secretary?
Please, certainly. My first name is Mark. Last name is Limanni, Limanni. I'm the General Counsel and Director of Procurement for the Housing Authority of the County of Cook. Previously, I was the Director of Asset Management and responsible for this particular building. Our address is downtown Chicago at 175 West Jackson, room 350, zip code 60604.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm here on behalf of a governmental agency and also concurrently on behalf of the current resident of the property, Ms. Widra. Ms. Widra is a resident of this particular site, which is owned and operated by the Housing Authority of the County of Cook for low-income public housing individuals. It's one of several sites that we own and operate, including the Wheeling Tower. We have another 6-flat unit property in the region, and one of which is also being converted to UFAS, but without any need for a zoning variance. And this particular property, which is the family site that was selected in conjunction with an analysis by the federal government's Department of Housing, Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. This is indeed a unique situation, and there are, I believe, some compelling reasons why this variance should be granted relating to the federal laws which led us to this position and finally this application. The Housing Authority of the County of Cook has had an obligation to create and establish an adequate number and sufficient number of what are known as UFAS units, the Uniform Federal Accessibility Code. It is a code which goes above and beyond the ADA standards. It's a requirement that all public housing authorities, all 2,400 of them nationwide, must comply. This includes our big brother, the Chicago Housing Authority, and we've been attempting to convert units to make them accessible so that there will be adequate housing for people with various types of disabilities, whether it be physical disability or a sensory disability. We have been focusing our work predominantly in the south portion of the County of Cook. Wheeling is our northernmost property. We hold properties in Arlington Heights, Skokie, Niles, 2 in Evanston, 1 in Franklin Park, Summit, then down to Harvey, Robbins, Ford Heights, Chicago Heights, and Park Forest. The Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity got into a struggle with the Housing Authority of Cook County a number of years ago prior to my arrival here at the Housing Authority. I was employed here in 2011. The Housing Authority had made a commitment to converting an adequate number of units around the county so that there would be a sufficient number of variable units so that people would have different types of opportunities. The Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity is not just about making the right number of units, but they also emphasize the need for mobility so that people can move into good, solid communities such as, of course, the village of Wheeling, the city of Wheeling. We take that seriously. We know that this is a community that has a lot more to offer than we have down in Fort Heights, Chicago Heights, Robbins, and Harvey. These are tough towns where we also work. We selected this property in conjunction and got approval of the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office to select this site and one of the other sites that we have at another location here in Wheeling. And those obligations compel us typically to relocate the resident. In this particular instance, we would normally be packing them up and moving them off. But we met Miss Wedra, who's the resident of the property now, and she's been a resident and a good resident of of Wheeling for a period of 20 years at this particular site. We did not have the heart to move her off, but we knew we were compelled to do so unless there was a need, a disability need. We then interviewed Miss Wedra and learned that Miss Wedra's household is about to expand. She is bringing back aboard her household her daughter. Her daughter suffers from a severe, debilitating, and in fact life-threatening condition. I'm sorry. She has authorized me to share that information with you. Typically that matter is confidential in nature, but we know that for the zoning board hearing, it's important to share as much information as possible so that that can be factored into your analysis. I know that the board takes this business lightly. I'm a 30-year veteran of the City of Chicago Law Department. This is my retirement job. It's quite a challenge given the financial situation. This particular property was ideal in its setting, and the Fair Housing Office really wanted this property because it is an ideal location in a very ideal community, which is everything that you would want in a single-family home. We know that in order to make this unit accessible for a disabled individual, let alone Ms. Wedra's daughter, we need to have adequate space to do so. We consult with an engineering firm, the firm of EMG Consulting, and specifically they fly in an expert on UFAS code requirements, and he helped us in the identification selection of this particular unit, which was then submitted to the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity and approved. It is part of a voluntary compliance agreement that relates to the challenges that we felt in meeting our obligation under FHEO. We agreed that this was the right unit to convert because not only would we be doing it in the village, which is very desirable for a resident, but also we would be awarding the benefit of that construction to the 20-year resident of the building, allowing her to expand her family, take aboard her daughter, and give her daughter a bedroom and an accessible bathroom at the property. In order to do this, of course, space is needed, and it was identified that the garage was a sufficient location where that could be undertaken. We had design drawings prepared by Globetrotters Engineering Corporation, very reputable company. They do work locally and nationally, and there was agreement about the design capability of this, and we're obligated under this federal agreement to complete this construction subject to the zoning board's approval and ultimately approval of the building and design permits by March the 31st. There is a remote chance that the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity may grant us an extension, but my experience has been since joining the Housing Authority as the General Counsel, HUD, which is our benefactor. I mean, we run off of HUD funds almost exclusively, but it is very unlikely that they will allow us to change the location because there are very few places that we have in the North region that would be accessible for this purpose. We have other scattered site housing down in Evanston, and we are in fact converting our 2 high-rises there under a LIHTC that was approved by the Illinois Housing Development Authority, I believe about 3 weeks ago, and that will include an expansion and a number of accessible units, but they were really looking for, HUD was really looking for a viable single-family home so that a low-income resident would have the advantage of the same things that what most Americans want. We understand the parking issues involved in taking up the garage, should the board approve the construction, and these two zoning variances, and we've agreed to expand the width of the parking slab in the front of the property so that there would be adequate off-street parking for 2 vehicles. And we, for these reasons, hope that the board will consider this favorably and grant the variances necessary for us to do this construction.
Well, if you can go into a little bit more description of what you plan on doing.
The intent is, well, actually, forgive me, I've been handling building and zoning matters for 30 years for the city, but the Stone Avenue has a facing garage, an attached garage. That you will note is in purple on the design drawings to my left. I believe you're right. What you will see, that garage space will be built out, and a bedroom will be installed in that area, and a bathroom towards the front of that area. So Ms. Weidger's daughter will be able to sleep in the back portion of that area. She'll have accessible travel widths there, and a specially constructed bathroom to assist her because of her illness to be able to attend to herself. Fair housing is similar to the Colbert Decree and various other laws that have been enacted and case litigation rules that have been enacted, are striving towards creating the most livable capability for an individual, whether it be a mental health issue or whether it be a physical issue, to try to make the property accessible to the degree that a person could independently control most of their physical needs and functions. And the design that we've prepared, as you see the bathroom in the front, the bedroom at the rear, will allow her to cohabit in that space. She has 3 children of her own, and this will allow her to, Mrs. Weidger, to accommodate her daughter and the 3 grandchildren.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? No? Okay. We will go to the commission members, and I will start with Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have any other viable options been considered for renovation of this house to accommodate a wheelchair or that type of handicap?
We will need, of course, to build a ramp to allow access easily into the doorway, but we either had to go vertically or we had to work within the footprint that was there. The garage was the perfect way to do that at an affordable rate. As you might guess, this is frequently the problem, and I don't mean to lament the financial situation in Housing and Urban Development, but they give us a limited amount of funds to get this done under capital programs, and in fact, we have to pull this from our own capital budget. Debate in D.C. obviously has restricted the amount of capital funds that come to housing authorities nationwide. For 1,800 units, we walked away with $1 million in capital budget that we're expending through the year until March 31st, the end of our fiscal year. It's actually easier and less expensive for us to build into the garage than it would be to add a more full addition over the garage. And we deemed that the structural work that would have to be done to expand the footprint over the garage to add that living space really wasn't cost effective for us within the limited means we had available.
Okay, so no other options. I mean, you did look at other options, such as expanding the second floor.
Correct, right.
Okay.
The cost jump really made it
I can
not so much a no-brainer, sure. But it really led
but you
to
you did look at that. Okay. The existing footprint.
Yes.
Is the house built on a slab?
It's on slab.
It's currently on a slab, not on a crawl space, or doesn't have a basement.
I must confess, I haven't crawled it, but my understanding is, and I know the garage in particular is on slab.
Right. I assume that the garage is on a slab. The entire house is on a slab. Okay.
Forgive me for having to defer to the lady who's lived this.
That's fine. because in my mind is how is this going to fit in? And of course, the first thing is heating. That, is a new furnace going to be put in, or is?
Well, obviously, with in addition of the if I can give you some background, my job was also, among others, the Director of Licensing and Registration for the Chicago Building Department for 3.5 years. Obviously, as you know, heating is dependent upon the footage that has to be treated, and this expansion increase we believe may require an increase in the size of the furnace that would go in the house.
Okay, so you plan to then not put in a separate furnace for this new living space?
Correct.
Okay, if the heating requirements require additional heating, then you'll have to expand the existing heating rather than put in another furnace.
Correct, and I do know.
Okay, so the existing furnace is where it is on the drawing?
Yes. So we would be expanding that unit, and most undoubtedly pursuant to the federal guidelines, we would also be upgrading to a more energy efficient unit. We're required to do so each time we replace it.
Sure.
And this one, I believe, has been there for a bit.
Okay. That was a concern, is the heating of the space. Usually garages are not well insulated. Insulation is going to have to be increased rather than putting a second story on, which would, not and keeping that garage. Wheeling requires on individual, family residence, a two-car garage. Yes. This, of course, was built before that regulation went in. You're in effect not only taking away, you can't provide for two cars, a two-car garage. You're taking away the only one-car garage that's there.
That's correct.
That's you're sliding out of conformance even more so than you are now. Granted that you're going to want a second pad, and I can see that requirement. If you're going to have two cars, I don't know if that's going to be required or not, but
we intended, Mr. Schiff, we intended to.
Yeah, you did. You
we had
did say
to do that, and in fact, Mr. Jennings' staff actually brought that to our attention, and we were most anxious to accommodate the village in doing that. We don't want to add an off-street parking. We note that there is very little off-street parking permitted, and we don't want to add any congestion to the street. We are at the intersection, so we know
there is
propriety there.
There's going to be problems with off-street, with street parking. I would not be in favor of creating that. And I'll direct this to staff, is the driveway going to have to be expanded?
Their current plan, as the petitioner noted, is to expand the driveway and provide a ramp from it. This on the right side of the screen.
Yeah.
Right now, this is the expanded driveway. I believe it keeps the curb cut identical. Do you know for sure?
Correct. Right.
Okay, so you just slide the car on the right-hand side.
So it would be, if you look, this is the corner of the house. So approximately out to here on this, where you can see the full footprint of the house. And then this ramp it looks like a single switchback here, comes from the parking pad up to a new front porch area.
Okay. But you intend, it is the intent to keep the same curb cut?
It appears to be.
We believe it can accommodate it. It's actually pretty wide on its own. I've driven into that space as well. There's a significant
but it's going to be difficult if one car wants, if the car parked on the right wants to, it's just presents some difficulties. I'm not real comfortable with creating living space in a garage. It's just not. It's not what it was built for. I understand you have regulations and asking us to approve a variation from our existing regulations, and that's not an easy decision on my part.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chef. All I can hope is that, you would find that there's adequate cause and reason to
Right.
try to help someone in
The
distress.
siding, now, are you going to, is the plan to take out the garage door and re-side?
Correct.
Okay.
We would make it look somewhat consistent with the front of the house and try to come up with a
Right.
design that would be acceptable.
And that is what, the type of siding, is it cedar or is it
I have to
tin?
confess, I haven't, I
Vinyl?
currently it's vinyl.
Yeah, it's-
For the space that we're building, we want to try to make it as consistent with the look of the rest of the house. So we're going to try to match it with that, or alternatively, we'll just reside the entirety of the house to get a consistent look.
Yeah, that would, I think would be aesthetically more accommodating is to re-side the entire place. Because if that siding has been there for a while,
Yeah.
it fades. In the sunlight, it fades.
Well, only thing I will say, Mr. Chef, we are more than willing to do that. If you'll just allow me to note, low-income public housing is the ultimate zero-sum game. We have to come up with 99 accessible units throughout Cook County, and we will certainly more than happily accommodate the village, but we hope the village can help us get there and help us do it with reasonably minimal cost increase, because that takes it away from, as we tell residents who don't pay their rent.
Is going to be any expansion to that garage?
Of the garage? No, we're not
So
expanding on it.
So you're going to be on the same footprint?
Correct, we're not expanding the footprint of the building.
Okay. And in order to get sewer and water over there, that's going to be, you're almost going to have to tear that pad out.
Well, we have a sewer and water service. We believe it's consistent with the fixture count there. We're only adding a commode and a shower stall for the resident, the individual that's the handicapped person there. We don't anticipate that that's going to dramatically increase the water service needs of the building.
Now, I'm not talking about the service needs, I'm talking about getting water over to into the bathroom.
Oh, no, that we're more.
You're going to have to almost tear that pad out.
A good portion of that pad's coming up, that's right.
Okay, and everything is going to have to be, drains put in and all the rest of that stuff.
I misunderstood your point, and yes, you're correct.
Yeah,
But
you're
we
gonna have
can
to
anticipate that, we know that's coming. I also come from a plumbing family, I understand.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I hate is plumbing.
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
The plumbers were the hardest people to license and the hardest people to compel into
Yeah,
compliance.
and that's the first dial I make because I don't do that, but that's beside the point. In this case, so you're in effect going to tear this garage out and
It's going to be
replace
substantial modifications to get all the utilities, both water, heat, and drainage to the, and electricity to the property, right.
Okay. And Andrew, the setbacks are such that a detached garage is not feasible,
Detached, no.
or even attached garage, because, when you take away the garage, that's quite a convenience to that residence.
There's one of the things that that we had looked at as a staff is what were the alternatives. We had contacted the representatives of, I don't know if it was Globetrotters, I think it was actually the Housing Authority. Brian is the Housing Authority? Brian Barnes is with the Housing
Yes.
Authority.
Mr. Brian Barnes is our 304 coordinator. He is also a disabled individual himself. He helps us in meeting these challenges of gaining the additional units and ensuring that we comply such that at the end of the construction, the third-party certifier can provide confirmation of our full compliance with UFAS requirements. We pay for that cost, but that is an independent service that is tendered and rendered to the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office.
So the question that we were trying to answer through Mr. Barnes was the process by which the garage, as you've just noted, the garage does have some cost of construction inherent in it as well. We had tried to determine if there were other reasonable alternatives using the existing building, in addition to the west side being a possibility, repurposing indoor space.
I think that was my first question, where, did you, were other options? Yes.
And so that's what we were working with Mr. Barnes. I was trying to determine that. We did not get to the answer of the second floor was apparently examined for its potential to meet this requirement. We had actually focused, we're not familiar with UFAS. We had focused our sort of space planning review of this on the first floor. We were trying to figure out if there was something that could be done at the ground level that could otherwise.
Okay, there of course to me is another option, and that is the cost of the house plus the cost of improvements to accommodate this, and of course any demolition and all that kind of stuff. When we take and lump all that together, could you sell this house as is and then purchase another place that would accommodate the needs of the residents?
I'd be happy to recount the process that allows us to alienate property that was originally purchased with federal funds. One must apply to the Real Estate Assessment Center of the Department of Housing and Development. They basically allow you no opportunity to sell off property unless it goes through a substantial assessment under federal guidelines that are about 6 pages thick, single-spaced. We have just been able to complete the approval for the transfer of an abandoned site that we were ready to demolish but didn't have the funds to demolish, and we were able to establish to HUD's satisfaction that it could be donated for the construction of a women's veterans village in the middle of Ford Heights. And Chef, I don't know if you know Ford Heights, but it's listed as the poorest community in the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
And in fact, we were authorized, it took us a year, from the moment I walked in the door to 2011 till the closing that was about 60 days ago. That's how long it took to get approval to do that. And it was only because it was going to a veteran purpose that we were.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that you're dealing with the government.
Well,
Or you are the government, aren't you?
As Pogo used to say, we have seen the enemy and it is us.
Yes.
We're the government.
Yeah.
We have to abide by those laws. 27% of our operating expenses come from rent. The other percent is all from HUD, and therefore
Yeah.
you have to abide by each and every guideline.
I guess in my mind, I have to allow that we're dealing with other agencies of the federal government, and that's very difficult. I think this is going to be more expensive than you think.
Mr. Chef,
I don't think that all the costs have been identified, and it's going to turn into a monstrosity.
The Office of Fair Housing was most emphatic, however, because, and I'm not trying to curry favor with the board, but Wheeling's a very desirable space, and HUD wanted us to get something up here so that poor folks could get access to the very things that I'm assuming you all enjoy. And I get it. I'm sure you get it. And we're committed to doing it. The only thing that was icing on the cake for us was that we got to know who would be getting the space, and it's a 20-year resident of the village.
Yes, and I don't want to lose a 20-year resident of Wheeling.
And we almost had to let her go out, and then we found out about her daughter, who's here today.
Yeah.
And that just tied it in a bow for us.
I think I've exhausted my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dorban.
Thank you. You said you investigated other options for this house. Can you tell me what other options you did?
Well, of
And
course
do you
we-
have verification of what you did?
Verification, no. I don't have anything written with me today. I did check and assess the Real Estate Assessment Center requirements to tear the house down and rebuild. HUD only allows you to remove, even after fire, a parcel that's literally hanging on a very limited basis. You're compelled to rebuild everything that they have in stock. We have buildings built in 1953, 54, and 55, large facilities in Ford Heights, Robbins, and Chicago Heights, and where one might say that it is cheaper and better to simply tear them down and rebuild, HUD's primary concern is what's called utilization, making every unit provide a seat in a lifeboat. And as a result, we've had to pull down every reserve that we had. We're in short, we're near broke to rebuild 75 units last summer down in Chicago Heights and Ford Heights, and this year 64 units. The Director of Asset Management's back in the right, Mr. James Harney. We're finishing up a 64-unit rehabilitation gut rehab.
I realize that
Yeah.
that you've got a lot of activities going on within the village, but if we could stay just focused.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little far
on the
afield.
variation and the questions that
Sure.
Commissioner Dorband asked.
I appreciate it,
Thank you.
Mr. Feder. I'm sorry, lawyers tend to get
Okay.
windy.
The other question I have is, it seems to me that this project would cost a great deal more than if you were to add an addition on the back of this house. It seems to me that there would be adequate space there, at least for a bedroom. The other thing I'm not hearing from you is what you've considered for going up. There are ramps that could take this person up to the second floor. You haven't said anything about, please let me finish. You haven't said anything about what your possibility is of reconstructing the second floor in order to accommodate this person. And the last thing, my concern is we're now changing the entire character of the neighborhood. And so all those things combined, I really want to hear from you and see from you what you've done, what kinds of things you have done to make you come to this point that this is the only option.
Well, the difficulty obviously is a second floor isn't viable because we would be required under the UFAS code to install an elevator system, and there's no ramp that can accommodate in it.
What about a chairlift?
All of the above are extremely expensive components. We need a long rise and run in order to accommodate that and also provide space for the residents.
Is there not a long enough run in that side of the house?
We don't believe there is, no. And the
But have you got,
If
do
I
you
could
have
finish just a
anything in
moment?
writing that says you can't do this? I'm just feeling rather frustrated because it seems to me this is the only option you're bringing us. And I won't be able to do anything with this without having more information.
Well, if I could get an idea of what that might be, I'd be happily...
That's your job of bringing it to us to tell you what the other options are.
I understand, and I'm happy to provide you as much information as I can. But a commitment has been extracted from the Housing Authority of Cook County by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. It's expecting an answer as to what Wheeling's decision and determination.
So you're telling me, is this the only option?
If I could just finish. It's expecting an answer as to the determination that's been made here. We have paid for a licensed architect and a major engineering firm to do the analysis of the property of the best ways to assess this and have it performed. We've also taken into account the the UFAS requirements under the federal code that we're obliged to abide by. And there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. We figured that working on the footprint with an existing foundation, even though we would be cutting into it, would still be more viable than attempting to add additional second floor space for a resident who would then need a lift to get up there. And so this is our best viable, capable situation. As far as the changing of the neighborhood, well, first of all, nobody's here to complain about this, but Ms. Weidger has been talking to her neighbors who have given support. They don't want to see her move out, okay? And we're trying to make that happen at the expense of the Housing Authority of Cook County. We think this is a reasonable option. It's a pretty obvious one given the fact that it sticks within the footprint of the building, which what we understand is the more important issue that had been raised in discussions with Ms. Weeger and the neighbors. We're trying to serve many masters here within the guidelines and within the money that's allotable. But I don't think this is a dramatic change in the look and feel of the neighborhood, because the building's going to look as consistent to the rest. It's not even an addition. It's the conversion of the bedroom into, of the garage into a bedroom and bathroom will be almost undiscernible to the outsider, other than the fact that it won't have an old garage door in front of it that's sitting there today. We'll reside that space. The difficulty, I acknowledge it, for what the neighbors will see as 2 cars parked in the front. But normally there's 1 car parked there now. If the zoning board wants to impart a restriction for only 1 vehicle, we would be happy to accept that.
Well, we too serve many masters, and the many masters are our residents. And whether they're here or not, I feel compelled to look at how they would feel in this particular situation, and I do feel that it would change the character of the neighborhood. And I am disappointed you are not bringing us any other options.
If I may interject.
Yes, please, go ahead.
It seems like there might be something that we could, you indicated, the other options in addition on the first floor or other options. You indicated that you retained an engineering firm, an architect, and that they concluded that this was the best viable option. But, I mean, would it be reasonable to assume that they considered other options as well when they came up with this plan?
Yes, the objective was to find the best way to make this unit UFAS accessible within the financial limits of the Housing Authority and without a dramatic change in the configuration of the structure.
And it seems what I'm hearing from at least the current commissioners who have spoken is that they haven't seen the documentation by the architect submitted that shows, that maybe gives an explanation why. And I think that's what maybe they're concerned about, inquiring to show that those steps were taken and how you came, that all these other options, because a variation is a significant departure from the code. Is that a correct assumption? And I think maybe that would calm some of the fears, or give some further information as to the consideration of other options and why this was determined to be the best option.
Well, unfortunately, if I had the funds, I would have flown Mr. Hemrick in from Atlanta, but I just didn't have that opportunity.
And I'm aware of that, but and I'm saying that this board tends to can carry over things to consider additional documents, and if this is something important to it, that even getting a written report from him that shows that and explains that might be of some assistance, that it wouldn't necessarily require them to make a decision today, but it wouldn't require him to come in and testify, but perhaps some written submission or documentation.
If it certainly resolves the commissioner's concerns, I can obtain that additional data for the board, have it presented to council and Mr. Jennings, and then have that shared with the board, and perhaps you could meet en banc and make a determination based upon that.
Sure, and just to follow up on what Ms. Maluzzi said, the standards, the Plan Commission's role in this, as I'm sure you're aware, the Plan Commission's role is to sort of establish on the record, take your testimony, take any public testimony, establish on the record the set of findings in favor of or against a particular item, and to paraphrase what Commissioner Dorban is asking for, to establish the need for this particular variation. The Commission is suggesting that we need to compare that to the alternatives that your organization went through to come to this decision. So the Commission as a whole, I think, would, if I'm paraphrasing you incorrectly, let me know, but from Commissioner Dorban and Commissioner Schaaf, it sounds as though there's a need to compare this to what the alternative was, to determine that there wasn't an option that was reasonable, that didn't require this particular variation.
Mr. Jennings, I'm not averse to homework. That goes with my job, so I'd be happy to provide that for you. Could I get it? Well, there may be other questions first.
Sure. Great.
I'm done, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I just have a couple quick questions. Is there access from the garage handicap accessible access from the garage to the rest of the house?
Yes, yes, it'll be connected access space so that the granddaughters will be able to visit their mother who will be living in that.
The floor level will be the
Yeah,
same?
We're trying to make that identical.
Okay. And how many total residences? The two ladies and
There are 3 there
children?
now, there will be 4 joining, 3 small children and 1 adult daughter.
So 7 total, and how many cars, drivers?
I'm only aware of the one that Ms. Weidra owns. I'm not aware of any additional vehicles, but as I did indication, Commissioner, we are more than willing to accept a limitation on the number of vehicles.
I was just wondering if
Okay.
there's already one in the garage or not. That's really all I had on the variation, and just a comment, when you side the whole front of that thing, a window would be nice. I know it's a bathroom, but something to break up that wall.
I'm with you.
That's all I had, thanks.
Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. Andrew, can you pull up the footprint of the revised garage? So is this whole area here, Andrew, is the bathroom, the bedroom, it's this whole, and it looks like the bedroom extends over what would be, I guess, to the south where they have, looks like closets, and then is that the entry door there? Is that what we're looking at, what I'm looking at here?
On the Stone Place elevation, you'll see a walkway that penetrates from the original house entranceway into the new, into the garage, which will now be the new entranceway. There'll be a closet and door, there'll be a door, I'm sorry, forgive me. There'll be a closet marked at number 2, you'll see. You'll see the door swing on the inside as we head in the back entrance of the house.
And it's going into the bedroom, right?
Correct.
So that whole back area is the bedroom?
Correct.
And then with the washroom, with the bathroom in the front. How many, I just curious, how many bedrooms are there upstairs?
I believe 3.
And how many, are there any bathrooms upstairs? And was there any thought about making that handicap accessible at all?
Mr. Hemrick was most emphatic that there was no real effective way to make the turn radiuses adequate. UFAS adds a lot of extra room in terms of the space that has to be made available to turn between a shower or tub, the toilet and the vanity. So the best option without doing perhaps potentially structural changes to the building was to build into the garage space to draw upon the footprint.
The only other comment I have is, like, I know Commissioner Schaaf asked a question about the siding and stuff like that. It sounds, I don't know, from what I've been hearing, you may have some kind of limited fund resources, and my concern would be, whatever you do, I would hope you go to completion, because I'm sure there's other things that we may want to tack on to this, like as far as how that should look. Like Commissioner Johnson said, the window, Commissioner Schaaf said siding, you know, all that could incur a cost, but I'm not getting a warm fuzzy that, you know, if we ask for that stuff, that it would actually be seen through completion, you'd be able to do that.
Mr. Powers, we don't award a contract to have it done unless we have funds in a locked fund. Actually, we have multiple funds within the authority. We're required to pinpoint that money before we even put it out to solicitation for bid. If a window is needed, that's, you know, framing a window and installing a you know, star-rated window is not going to be a dramatic increase in cost. Siding, as long as we're not cladding it, say, with stone, I don't see that we're going to have a major problem in siding the garage, nor in making the entirety of the building sided so that we get a nice, consistent look. We're happy to do that.
Okay.
I don't think that those aren't the types of pennies that we're worried about.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I am not going to belabor the alternatives because that was my questions also, sir. But if we're talking about changes, the existing driveway probably needs to be resurfaced. It's in fairly bad condition, and since you're going to be adding a new pad, you might as well, I don't know if we could just skim that off and add additional, add a layer, but that needs to be redone also, if we're going to be adding that. And I think you said that you were going to be adding another pad. That looks like it's the original on that house. So in talking about incurring, irrespective of that, that's part of what I would like to see on that. But with that said, what I think we've asked for, our attorney has asked for, put it in better words than we have, and Mr. Jennings has, that if you can get us that information, we will continue this. Do we have to continue to a date?
It is a public hearing, so you have some option. I know that you have some time constraints on the project, so our next available meeting is December 5th. If you think that it's possible to obtain that information relatively quickly, if I'm phrasing this correctly, the analysis of the alternatives, what the alternative was, and the analysis that led it to be ruled out in favor of this particular alternative.
Okay. Is it the intent of the zoning board to hear that in bonk, or does the zoning board have additional information that it will want through, voir dire here in a full hearing?
I'm not sure.
I believe
It would need to be at the public hearing still.
Public hearing. Yes.
So it would need to be at the next board meeting. They wouldn't decide to be, it's requirements in the Open Meetings Act require that all decisions be made.
I'm not going to go through the litany of things I've done with the city of Chicago for 30 years, but yeah, I understand.
But yes, prior to making a recommendation in support of or against, they're requesting the record.
Review of alternate processes. Okay.
Yes.
Certainly I can do that.
But with our date of December 5th, the requirement to have that information to us, you have to push it back.
And we have a relatively short.
We have a week. Let's.
So you basically have the commission. If that information is not available, we can ask the commission if they would preemptively continue it to the next. We could bring it to the next meeting following that, which would be the 19th.
The 19th. Unless you,
A personal matter, not a pleasant one, but the 19th? If I cannot make it, certainly there'll be a representative here in the House of the Authority.
Right, the 5th or the 19th.
Okay. I'm assuming the 19th might be best, Mr. Riffle, because I have to reach people that are not only in the architecture locally, but also down south.
Understood.
Is there, and at this point, and it might be helpful to know, is there any additional information that any commissioners feel that they would like to see for evidence of the standards that they feel weren't presented now, so that they'd have the opportunity to get that ahead of time as well?
Well, I would like to see if one of the options was to take the existing bathroom downstairs and expand it, and a bedroom either added or something like that.
I think what they're
That would be included.
What they're going to present is the options.
Right, and I would like to at least see that as included in that, if that was even considered.
Right. Well,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Doesn't this go beyond the scope of what they're asking for? They're asking for a parking variation, and we're getting into design work.
Well, but the parking variation is based upon what they're doing inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
The standard, the standards for variation, there are 6 standards. What this relates to is the practical difficulty in meeting these requirements without even needing the variation. So the question from Commissioner Dorban and Commissioner Schaaf that I think has been echoed is that was there an option that allowed for these other requirements to be met that didn't necessitate a variation from this section of the zoning code? Was there an option for providing the required bedroom and bathroom to meet those design criteria of UFAS?
Of the existing baths, yes.
Or was there an option, either existing footprint, code compliant addition? Was there a way to do this that was ruled out in favor of this option, relating then to the standards that of the variation?
So if we could continue to a date certain of December 5th, and if we have to continue, we can continue without can we continue without discussion on the 5th? Or should we make it a date certain of the?
I would make it a date, it seems indicating here to make it a date certain of December 19th, because
Okay.
he doesn't feel he can get the information in time, so then we
Fine.
wouldn't have to worry about that issue.
Great, okay.
Mr. Rafato, would
Yes.
it be possible to reach the engineering staff personnel and perhaps give Mr. Jennings, and take the 5th date? If I can't make it, someone competent will be here.
Would you prefer the 5th date then? Okay.
Given the urgency of the project, the time constraints, and as I say, the Office of Fair Housing is watching, so yes,
Okay.
I can tell you that
Then
that's an
let's
issue.
continue to a date certain of the December 5th.
So we have a motion to continue to December 5th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Schaaf, seconded by Commissioner Dorban. Can we do a voice vote, or do we have to do a regular?
You can do a voice vote.
Voice vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Continued.
We appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to take a 5-minute break before our next. Good move. Back in session, calling dockets number 2013-27 and PC 13-11, Wheeling Laundry World, 1201 West Dundee Road. Mr. Secretary.
RMS Properties LLC, property owner, is seeking a variation from Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19.11, General Development Standards, Section 19.11.010, off-street parking and loading, Section E, Parking Standards, Subsection 1, Minimum Required Parking per Land Use Category, and associated sections to reduce the required parking for a proposed laundromat at 1201 West Dundee Road, Wheeling, Illinois, which is Zone B2 Neighborhood Commercial District.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings.
If I could just clarify, the original publication for this and the staff report to some degree did not help in defining what the reason for this variation is. The current parking requirement for this building is based on the known use. When this building was designed, it was designed with a certain amount of indoor parking. It was designed with a land bank area for additional parking. The trigger for the construction of that land banked area would be at the village's discretion. What has happened in the time since this building was constructed and since became vacant, the Village of Wheeling established a speculative parking requirement that requires unknown retail, office, etc., unknown commercial space to have a parking requirement that is higher than some uses, lower than some uses. What it's designed to do is to provide for flexibility of future use when that future use is unknown. In this case, the existing building, in order to be subdivided into multiple units, we have to apply that speculative requirement because the space is not known, the end use of that space is not known. To convert this building in its configuration, remove the parking that is inside the building, and convert the rest of the square footage into speculative space, this particular building would be short on parking. It has too few parking spaces, although the particular site plan that the petitioner is proposing does increase the parking from what is there today substantially. The speculative parking requirement would require more than what can be placed on the site. So the variation is required because the unknown use, the amount of the variation decreases slightly once one of the units is a known quantity that's below the speculative parking requirement. In this case, the petitioner has disclosed that I can't remember exactly the square footage, but a certain portion of this building is intended to be used by a known quantity, the laundromat. That parking requirement, based on the configuration of the space, it reduces the extent of the variation slightly. If they had known when converting the building what more of the space would be, it's possible that the extent of the variation could be decreased even more. So with that, I'd like to open it to the petitioner and open the hearing.
Sir. Yes. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give tonight will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you could give your name and business address to our recording secretary, that would be great.
The name is David Schaefer, S-C-H-A-E-F-E-R. Business is David A. Schaefer Architects, 2500 South Highland Avenue, Suite 340, in Lombard, Illinois, 60148. Anything else? Okay.
Great. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Well, as Mr. Jennings had explained, this is a former lighting showroom and sales center, and my client recently purchased the building. He owns many properties in the western suburbs and develops them and holds on to them. He doesn't sell them again. When he buys these buildings, he renovates them, fixes them up, adds value to the building, and as part of the build-out, not only in this building and many of the other properties that he owns, he does put in laundry facilities, and they're they're not like a dry cleaner, but they're like a coin-operated laundry. And in this particular building, we're about 9,500 square feet. The laundry is going to be about 6,000 square feet. And then if you, I don't know, I have the floor plan here. Flip to the floor plan. He's proposing, or we're proposing, to build 3 retail spaces that would face to the east. And so each retail space is approximately between 1,000 and 1,200 square feet. Now, those are the spaces that are unknown at this time. You know, typically in his shopping centers, he gets, you know, mom and pop type shops. If we could find one tenant for the entire building, he'd love that. Unfortunately, in this economy, that's really not a very viable option. He has, like I said, he has other properties that he's trying to lease that are much bigger square footage than this, and those big tenants are just not around these days with the way the economy is. So what we're proposing is to add the laundry, and he would build that out right away to give life back to this building that's currently vacant. And as part of that, he would also fix up the outside of the building. There's a shed on the, Andrew, can you flip? I'm not sure how to operate this thing. On the side of the building, right?
Just here.
Yeah, there's a masonry shed that we would get rid of to extend the parking along that whole facade, and then add windows similar matching that are shown there to the left, where the new retail spaces are going to go. Then we would obviously, you know, paint all the stucco, clean the brick, so the building has a new looking appearance. As part of by putting in some of the parking, we had an arborist go out, and we noticed that 3 of the trees along the parkway along Dundee are actually ash trees, and will need to come out. But we're proposing to put in brand new trees, you know, where the old ones were. There's actually quite a bit of landscaping on that property. Not only are there trees on both Dundee and on the side street, but there's shrubs and hedges on all 4 sides of the property. So by replacing the trees, you know, it'll pretty much bring the site back to a healthy condition and look very similar to as it does today. So with that, you know, we're proposing we're asking the city here to give us a variation to reduce the number of parking to accommodate this facility, since the site is really, the building is built bigger than the site can accommodate for the parking needs.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'll answer any questions that you might have.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this? Thank you. If you could please sit down. We have somebody from the audience. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
I do.
And if you can give your name and address to our secretary, please.
Sure, it's Maggie Rowland, R-O-L-A-N-D, and I'm at 21 Schoenbeck. So I'm directly across the street and down. I'm right next to Walgreens. Light Art has been a very low-impact traffic building. It's usually just construction people going in there or contract people going in there. Very, very little traffic. You add a laundromat there, we're going to have tons of cars on Schoenbeck Road coming and going. You had 3 other unknown entities in that building, and who knows what's going to be traffic-wise there. There isn't a reason why a laundromat should be in that corner to begin with. There's a lot of strip malls that can go in. Wheeling has a ton of different laundromats. That's just not an ideal place to place a laundromat.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this? No. Okay. We'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. These other 3 units on the side, they're combinable if
Yes.
the right
Yes, if
person
we've-
came along?
Right, if there is a tenant that wants to take 2 or all 3, we would absolutely entertain that. Or I'm sure the owner would, yes.
Those other storefronts are so small, I don't know. I'm just afraid we're gonna have another empty strip mall in town. And like Ms. Rowland, I wonder where the customers are gonna come from for the laundromat, because it's all single-family homes around there. There's not apartment complexes that would draw people that use laundromats.
Well, the client that actually works with the laundry facility that they purchased the equipment from, they do studies, and they're the ones that actually found this property and thought it would be a very good location for this particular facility.
Yeah, let me see if I had anything else. So you would be adding some parking from the space that was land banked when it was light art, correct?
Yes, correct.
So parking would be closer to Dundee?
Correct. And that parking was, like you said, land banked originally. I think we added maybe 1 more stall in that space because there was room for 1 more. Just trying to get as much in there as we could, knowing that we were going to need every spot available.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have for right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Powers.
Thank you. I see in the report that we had, is it the proposed hours of operation for the laundromat going to be 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
I believe that is what...
Or 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., I don't know.
Yes, yes, it's not a 24-hour...
It's not a 20,
No.
are those hours negotiable at all?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. The land banking, how many spots are they actually short, Andrew?
In the end, after the fire department connection, I believe you received a copy of the report and read
Yep.
that.
Yes.
Let me just double check the number. I want to say it is...
7?
It's going to be 7 after that one. No, 8 after the 1 is added to the 7. So we had originally thought it was going to be short 7. It's going to be short 8.
And they did chew into the land banking that was there? Is that true, or they have not?
They're adding, they net, I want to say 12 stalls from what's currently there. They're adding 17. We lost 1 to the fire department connection, and they're losing 4 indoor. So that's 12 net gain from what's currently there.
Andrew, if you could point out where the land banked.
So the land bank, we're here. If you look at the photograph, I believe our first photograph shows this. This is land bank parking. They would be adding those stalls. See how the parking lot lights are set back? This grass would be parking. The previous occupant of the building, when they constructed it, argued that based on the expected use, they did not believe that they would even need the code required parking. They got a variation to land bank the remaining required parking at that time. So at this point, what they're requesting, what this petitioner is requesting is to construct the land bank parking plus one. And then I believe this area you gain a land bank, you gain an additional space, and then with the removal of the shed, there's a few more spaces gained. One of these would be knocked out because of the fire department connection.
So what was the agreeable document, whatever document of land bank parking, that has been exhausted, and we are seeing the results of that usage of that land bank parking in this proposal here, correct?
It is exhausted. It is initially based on a different parking requirement.
Right.
So the 4.0 per thousand that led to that variation is not sufficient to meet the 5.5 per thousand of our speculative requirement that we now have.
Okay. The other question is, would having less tenants or having the use differ for this site, could that potentially alleviate the need for a variation?
It's more use than the total number of tenants. If the owner of this building were able to find and identify uses that were below the speculative requirement. The speculative requirement, I think we calculated in the ballpark of 52, I believe, stalls. If you can find tenants that are either at the retail ratio, the office ratio of 4 per thousand, there are other possibilities that are even below that. They just use the space with a lower intensity. It's possible that in the end, once the tenants are determined, that the variation is actually not needed, if that's what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay, I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you. The building that's directly south of this piece of property, is that where the garage is? Is your client buying that portion of it, or is that a separate building where that garage is?
No, it's all part of the same building.
Okay, so it looks like a two-story building.
Yes.
On the south.
On the back half.
Okay, so now my understanding is, that.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, that's part of the entire complex.
Yes.
Okay, and part of that is going to be the laundromat.
Yes.
Okay.
The west half.
The western part of that.
But we're going to also.
Is there an existing second floor on that? Do we know?
No. It's a half, about 1/3 of that's two-story space. There's a mezzanine. The rest of it is all two-story.
Okay, so. Geez, I live a block away and I still don't understand that second story. That is, you're taking that garage out.
Well, we're not using it as a garage. It's a two-story space.
Yes.
That we're going to convert into a retail space.
Right. Okay.
We're just going to put a drop ceiling in at.
Okay, and you're not going to have anything on that.
We're not going to put anything on the second floor.
On the second floor. Okay.
There is no second floor. We're not going to build a second floor.
So the additional parking spots are added into the count. Is that correct, Andrew? In front of the garage.
The additional park, they take the 4 out of the garage and they get back, I think, 3 outside.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right. And the property line ends almost at the building. Okay, so there's no additional land that you have on the west side of that building for additional parking.
The west or the south, correct.
The west or the south. Okay. I don't know where who did the study for you as far as the use of a laundromat. That's irrelevant. We've got one within 4 blocks of this location, and all you're going to do is split the revenue, because there's only going to be so many people using the laundromat for whatever. And I'm not really concerned about the laundromat. I'm concerned about those three, the three speculative and its effect on the parking. We have just finished rehashing parking requirements, and it was kind of a long process, and I am personally reluctant to give variations on parking requirements. We have cut these parking requirements down to the bare bone, as far as I'm concerned. And I am reluctant, but, I understand, what's going on. Those three speculative, that concerns me. That's a concern. You could have operations in there that require more parking, less parking. It's just an unknown. If you had commitments where we knew what the parking requirements were, then I would feel much more at ease. I am not at all at ease with parking requirements.
Well, can I address that?
Sure.
Well, it's my understanding that even if we found one tenant for the entire building, we wouldn't be able to meet the parking requirement.
Is that true, Andrew?
It depends on the tenant. I mean, if it
was a retail tenant.
If you were at 4 per thousand on 9,500 square feet, plus your additional parking, I think it's in the report. Let me see if I can find how I calculated that out. If it was a known quantity retail tenant for the entire building, let me see if we calculated that in the report. Help to be in the right report. If you have other questions, you can go on to that, and I'll give the calculation.
I really don't. I don't have any. But that is if there was one tenant for 9,500 square feet, what would the parking calculation be? Because what I heard Andrew say is the speculation increases that parking requirement.
Well, it does, right.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, you end up at 38, and the site has how many in the end after the lawsuit?
40.
So one tenant in a 9,500 square foot building would need no variation.
Right at the requirement, it looks like.
Yeah.
That's using the land bank or not? Yes.
Adding, it's the configuration proposed. It is 9,500 is.
Plus the additional that we've added.
Yes, exactly. So 9,500 is the square footage, the usable square footage of the building if you remove the indoor garage. And the parking calculation is removing the indoor garage.
The shed.
Removing the shed.
The transformer.
And relocating the transfer. So all of the other work that is done to get it up to 40, it would be required to do that.
Right.
It currently has 24 outdoor spaces and the 4 indoor.
Commissioner Schaaf, anything else?
No, so whatever business should go in there, there should be enough parking there if only one business would go into 9,500 square feet. Discounting a restaurant or something, something like that.
Well, again, there would be if they do all those improvements that we're proposing. Moving the transformer, moving the shed, or getting rid of the shed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And moving the garage, getting the, so, the maximum number of spots, of parking spots is 40. And the requirement be for one tenant with 9,500 square feet is 38. So that would require no variance.
Right.
Okay. Okay. That answers your question. It also answers mine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Dorbin.
Thank you. I too am, concerned about the fact that we spent a lot of time working on these variances for parking, and the fact that we have the laundromat that's already going to be short 8 spots if the other tenants are allowed. Really, it gives me a great concern, because we've done this in shopping centers where people have been wildly successful. And that's a good thing in one respect, and in another respect, it becomes parking issues. And we've always seemed to get in big trouble when we grant a variation. And with this, I can't in good conscience do it, because I think what was just pointed out is that we have one 9,500 square foot building, and you would just be at the requirement then to add 3 more users in there, and we don't know what they are, and not even imaginable. We could be a whole lot more short than 8. We could be 10 short, 12 short, and even more. So no, I can't go along with this. Sorry.
Is that it? I'm sorry. Thank you. Can you describe in a little bit more detail, because besides the variation, we also have the site plan approval for and building appearance approval. So can you describe in detail what you're going to be doing to the building and surrounding area? You mentioned the parking lot, but are you going to be changing the roof design?
No. All we're doing is if you look at the top drawing, we're going to be cutting in some new windows where those proposed retail spaces were. And we were just going to be painting and cleaning the building. We were going to add some storefront doors where the existing windows are, also on that east elevation. But the rest of the building would stay as it is, just cleaned up.
Okay. Nothing with the roof at all? Nope. Okay.
Unless, it's found that there's a leak or something, but...
Right, but that's normal maintenance.
Right.
No color change, because that's what is the roof made of? Is it a metal?
Well, that blue part is what they call a standing seam. Metal roof, but behind that is a flat roof.
Yes, right. Okay. And then the parking lot looks like it could use a resurfacing.
Yeah, you can barely see the parking stripes.
Right.
Yeah.
So resurfaced and restriped. Okay. Did this generated a bike racks? Andrew?
Yes, we proposed 2 new bike racks.
2 on the site plan.
Okay, so to the use that, because what you're doing is you're coming with a use that, I guess, reduces the speculation of what the 3 units are?
It is really confusing, but identifying the use of the laundromat and taking it out of the speculative, you now apply the specific laundromat requirement. The laundromat requirement, if we have a floor plan, allows us to calculate out a specific requirement for the laundromat. When you have that has an effect of reducing what the extent of the variation would have otherwise been, if that makes any sense. The variation at 5 per thousand applied to the entire building would have been slightly higher. Assigning the laundromat requirement to the usable part of the laundromat allows the non-usable part of the laundromat, the mechanical area, to be identified and taken out of the equation. So essentially, by identifying the laundromat, they have reduced the extent of the variation. You are still left with the speculative space that's unaccounted for.
But nonetheless, a variation.
Yes.
And, for instance, what is in the use that you have the laundromat, what is the peak usage on that? What is the peak time that you anticipate in that type of usage?
Peak times are usually Monday and Friday evenings between 6 and 10 p.m. The slowest days are the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We, and Mr. Jennings and I, had a discussion about the parking requirements for a laundry. And I know there's been talk tonight about a lot of traffic with the laundromat, and there really is not a lot of traffic with laundromats. I mean, our current, or I should say my client's current facilities, he gets a maximum of 10 to 15 patrons in his stores at any one time. And that's at peak hours, on peak days. So the parking requirement that the village is asking for, we feel is a little excessive. But, you know, we're doing the best we can to work with it.
But as a number of commissioners have pointed out, we spent months working on that to accommodate the village, and this plan commission did.
No, I understand that.
And, you know, it's an item that we talk about. So I guess, Andrew, is this, maybe it's the petitioner, is this parking variation appropriate for this use in what we're trying to accomplish here?
Well, I think it's quite a question of the commission, really.
Right.
It is,
right.
You know, you're being asked to review a portion of the building as a known quantity, a portion of the building under the speculative requirement, and determine if it does meet the standards for the variation.
Right. Because it is, the reality is that the laundromat is a permitted use in this area. It's not a special use, it's a permitted use. But in this case, it requires a variation. And that's, we as a board have to make that decision. So, okay. So do we have, are there any other questions?
Yes, I have questions.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
Okay. Andrew, with the speculative space, would they be required to add some more handicap parking, depending on what went in? I mean, is there a chance they're going to lose some more?
No, it's based, the accessibility code is based on, sorry, I'm flipping to the wrong direction. The accessibility code is based on the number of parking stalls, so it's a ratio. So
it doesn't matter if it's all the way around the corner from...
There's a table that they have to meet. There's parking lots up to 50 stalls have a requirement. 51 to 100 have a requirement. And then the spaces themselves do have some, if that's what you're asking, the spaces themselves do have to be, in this case, what we'd be looking for is the curb cut and ramp to indicate that those are the best stalls. There may be other stalls that would be more easily modified to meet that requirement. For example, if you're talking about the physical modification.
Well, let's say medical supply store wanted to move into one of those smaller ones.
Sure, they can.
They're going to want parking spots.
They can choose to exceed it.
Yeah, but that would take away more parking spots.
It would, a medical supply store.
I mean, I just pulled that out of the air as an example,
Sure.
but, you know, if somebody wants to have a handicap stall closer to their door.
Right.
And where is the ramp? Because it looks like when you expanded that parking to the west, they're tearing out the existing ramp. So where is there actually a ramp on the new plan?
That was one of the staff comments. You know, the spaces might need to be shifted. If the ramp is more easily added, for example, here, we might have them shift the striping over this. They're not exactly twice as big as a standard stall, so you would not stripe it this way. You'd stripe it so that the handicap stalls are directly adjacent to a ramp.
And in the notes, it said there's they're planning to have an attendant on duty
Yes,
all the time when it's open.
Yes.
Is that what he does at other
yes,
laundromats?
yes.
And then you mentioned that there's 10 to 15 customers at a time.
Maximum at peak hours, yes.
Yet, when I look at the plan, I counted like 54 washers and 30 dryers. It just
Right.
seems
Well, because people,
excessive.
they use 4, 5, 6 machines and get their laundry done in an hour and a half versus filling one machine like we do at home. To do 5 loads takes 5 hours at home, where they can do it all in 1 hour because they use multiple machines.
All right, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Schaaf.
I noticed on the floor plan, and Commissioner Johnson did mention the attendant, but there's no space on the drawing for where the attendant was going to be located. Usually there's a small office space, whatever, because, you know, you need to make change and things like that. So, you know, would you, it would seem that you would need to reconfigure a little bit, you know.
Yeah, this is a
place
preliminary
that.
plan. We can certainly add an office.
Yeah, you'll need an office space.
Sure.
That was it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm just looking for a clarification, and I thought I'd seen it, but the construction of the dumpster,
Yeah, I was going to ask too. Hardy board, yes.
I was looking for, and I had it, and I just,
There it is. It's on the side plan.
Here?
Earlier. You're on the landscape.
oh, I'm sorry. See what happens with my, okay, there, okay, I know I saw it somewhere.
It's hardy board, steel post, reinforced gate, it looks like.
Great. Okay, excellent. And then you mentioned it, where the light standards are in the land banked area, those are not going to have to move?
Actually, they will have to move.
They will.
Even the one that's set back isn't set back far enough.
Okay,
That one will have to get
right,
shifted.
that's what I thought, okay.
Yep.
All right,
Sorry, just to correct, I was combining the drawing with the suggested condition of approval on the trash enclosure. We had suggested the steel posts to anchor the gates.
Okay.
So that they would not be, they could operate independent. The gates always go first, and if they're not separately mounted, they bring the rest of the enclosure down with them.
okay, great, all right. Okay, are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, I think the office space came to mind, but also if they're going to have like a drop-off service, which many laundromats do, aren't you going to need a little bigger room to accommodate for anything that would be stored after they wash it or whatever they do, and then they're stored, so until somebody picks it up?
Yeah, I don't know that this client of mine, if he offers that service in his laundries.
Well, he probably should think about that, because if that's going to be the case, that's going to take up more space again.
Okay.
We're really not concerned about the footprint if that does if that does occur, that they offer a drop-off?
If they offer drop-off, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, Commissioner Dorban mentioned that laundromats have a drop-off service.
Sure.
And then they need to be stored somewhere, and that's not obvious on here. Is that something that needs to be added to this plan, or do we say that it can't occur without coming back?
Well, I mean, just hypothetically, if they were to change this floor plan to reduce laundry and replace it with storage, it would likely just reduce the requirement for parking for the laundromat. I mean, storage has a lower requirement than usable public space. They probably have to reduce machines. So, I mean, without actually running the numbers.
Okay. Well, what is your
In the
take?
other case,
Right,
taking away storage and
Right.
adding laundry space, you'd probably have them come back.
okay. Mr. Schaefer, is that something that the petitioner has any feeling about? We could put it as a condition that there would not be any type of drop-off service?
There's none to my knowledge. I don't know for sure that that's what he would do, but if it's something that would help us in this petition to reduce the parking requirement, I'm sure he'd certainly entertain it.
It still needs variation. Well, I don't know what this area is here.
Can you identify this area? There's a row of dryers and then there's an open area here.
That's all the existing
Mechanicals?
electrical equipment for the building.
Okay.
And so that wall is actually existing. We were proposing to just keep it and build it out as a utility space.
So there's a separation where the garage is here
Yes.
to the,
Yes.
thank you.
I don't know that's just something that just came up, so I'm not sure how to handle that.
You're saying the drop-off service?
Yeah, right.
The drop-off service, the impacts, just off the top of my head, the likely impacts on a site like this, you would possibly work with the landlord to dedicate a space for the purpose of the drop-off. You'd possibly look at the storage, what impact the storage has on the overall parking requirement. And as I said, that's likely to reduce the parking requirement of a laundromat. So if the opposite was being requested, removing a non-usable area and replacing with a usable area, you would have to come back with the opposite. I don't think you have that same issue.
But I can't imagine that a small storage area is going to make that much of an impact on a variation. I mean, maybe one parking spot, tops?
No, I don't. I mean,
Depends on if he takes out machines. That'll impact, wouldn't it?
it's the total usable square footage in the public area of the laundromat is how we would run this calculation. So it truly speculation at this point, what it would do.
Well, the petitioner has indicated that they don't plan on doing it, so it obviously is a non-issue, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Real quick, do we have other trash enclosures in the village that are constructed out of hardy board? Since I've been on the commission, I've only seen cedar. Are we good with hardy board?
We do have several. I'm trying to think of the most recent ones.
I'm just saying, I'd like to see it cedar, but, if everybody else is fine with hardy board, that's fine with me. That's really the only comment I have.
Well, I would assume you would try to match the existing exterior with the hardy board, right? I mean, what, is a color designated? I didn't even see.
No, we didn't designate a color for
Masonry
that.
and standing seam roof. I mean, it's.
But
Painted bright blue?
you've got brick.
Yeah.
It could match the brick. from, be similar to
I
that.
think it's actually noted on here.
Yeah, I can't, some of these things are not.
It does not indicate the color.
Right.
If it could match somehow, I guess that's really all I would ask.
Yeah, if council would prefer a cedar enclosure, we can do that.
Well, we can take a poll. Commissioner Dorban, hardy board or cedar for the
Cedar.
cedar? Commissioner Johnson?
I'd probably rather see it match something on the building.
So that didn't answer my question.
Well,
Did not
there's no
answer my
ce-
question.
There's no cedar on the building. I would like some sort of siding that would pick up,
So you'd want hardy board,
yeah.
hardy board to match. Commissioner Powers?
I'll say cedar.
Commissioner Schaff?
I would prefer cedar.
Okay, that's the reason. So I actually would prefer hardy board also, but it's cedar.
Okay.
All right, great. So, are there any other questions? Okay, so we have two dockets. Docket number 2013-26, variation from Title 19 regarding required parking. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Dorban, seconded by Commissioner Schaff. Mr. Johnson?
This is for 2013,
The parking variation.
parking variation.
Yeah, yes.
Commissioner Dorban,
No.
Commissioner Schaff,
No.
Commissioner Johnson, no. Commissioner Powers,
No.
and Chairman Ruffado.
No. Docket number PC 13-11, site plan and building appearance approval. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Schaff, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner,
Commissioner
Mr.
Schaff.
Secretary? Commissioner Schaff?
Commissioner Schaff.
Are there conditions?
There are.
There are.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number one, they were from the staff report with the exception of the one that was just modified. Number one, the on-site traffic control signs and pavement markings shall be replaced for legibility. Number two, that the trash enclosure be constructed of cedar with gates braced and anchored to steel posts. Number three, the parking stall in front of the fire department connection is removed and appropriately marked. Number four, that the handicap parking configuration is modified to provide required access from the parking lot to the building.
And the parking lot would be resurfaced and restriped?
Okay.
So we have a motion on the table right now. And it was all seconded, so
Yes.
we're looking for a vote.
Commissioner Schaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson, I say yes. Commissioner Dorban,
No.
Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Chairman Ruffado.
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no,
Okay.
2 absent.
Back to 2013-26, a variation that was voted no. So to give the petitioner an understanding of where the commission, how they voted and why they voted against the standards for approval, I'm going to ask each one of us to state the reasons why. So Commissioner Dorban?
26?
On
Parking
the
variation.
parking variation,
Okay.
why you voted no?
Just that it doesn't meet the code.
And specific around which standard for the variation?
I guess I'm not clear on what you're looking for.
Well,
It's exceeding what we've already talked about in our standards for parking variations, and it's exceeding it. I don't know what else to tell you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Dorband, and the fact that we have no idea what could move in to those other three.
Commissioner Powers?
I basically have to agree with Commissioner Dorman and Commissioner Johnson.
And Commissioner Schaff?
Due to the speculative nature of those other businesses is why I voted no.
Okay. And in my eyes, it changes the character of that locality with the variation and what it could do to the surrounding area and the essential character of the area, locality. That's it.
The character meaning?
Well, the variation needed there I feel will alter the character of that locality with the additional need for that. With reducing that is could cause issues in other areas, in my estimation, in the need for the parking, because we have a standard and we're reducing that. So it's going to alter what I think is the character and the essential character of that locality could increasing the parking, reducing the parking could cause issues if we have, based upon the other three areas, what that will do to the increased parking in that locality.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It also would increase the congestion around that area.
Right.
That is already congested because of Schoenbeck going out onto Dundee. The traffic congestion could become a problem because of the parking variation.
Now, we are, if you want to...
We did not have a motion to close on that.
But just one other thing, we are recommending board. This isn't, you can put it better than I can.
Sure. The recommendation of the commission based on their findings is forwarded to the village board for the final vote. We can discuss the date of that with you if you'd like for the owner to be present for that. Certainly work it into that schedule as well. So they meet on the Mondays, first and third Monday of each month. In this case, it's coming up, the December meeting comes up relatively quickly. So if the schedule works so that we have availability on that agenda, you can check your schedule and see if that would work for you and possibly the building owner. But the findings are the recommendation of the Plan Commission are forwarded to the board for their consideration.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Did you get enough copies of everything?
You have something to sign.
We have to close the public hearing.
Yep, I will. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have no minutes, correct? Approval of minutes?
Yes, the minutes were not distributed. We do, just as an explanation, I understand that this is probably the second time we've pushed those minutes off. We had several public hearings withdrawn. We need to compile the findings, the partial findings from the point where those were withdrawn. So our plan was, of course, to do that. We did not have the time to compile the volume of material. So we do anticipate having that for the next meeting.
Other business, Mr. Jennings, anything?
I have, I believe, just a couple of notes. We are canceling the December 12th meeting. It conflicts with another village event. So we do plan on canceling that. The other item that I had was a request from IT There was a policy decision made by the village to discontinue the automatic forwarding of emails to non-village addresses. So I don't know the exact date, but I did want to let you know that the policy decision has been made to discontinue the automatic village forwarding. There are a couple of different options, but if you go to our website, you do have mail through our website. If you scroll to the bottom in our footer, village employees and the commission and board, there's a link on the main village website to access your email through that. So there are some other options. We can let you know.
So, okay, so if you
Just the
could,
village.
Multiple devices can then connect back to it.
oh, okay. Automatic forwarding, I'm not sure what that is. Give us an example.
So, not every commissioner has requested in the past, but I think a couple of years ago, we had a request, rather than sending email only to the village address, the village had set up a forward so that if you requested a specific personal address to receive your village emails,
Right.
they would go automatically from the village email and forward into your personal email for reasons basically related to the Freedom of Information Act. It's not advisable to do that.
Do we have any of those set up?
It's on an individual basis, so any commissioner who has requested that their village email be automatically forwarded, that will stop.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. I didn't ask, okay, so, phew. Alrighty then.
That was easy.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Last meeting, I mentioned some lights that were on businesses over on Dundee Road. And when I went home, the flashing lights at the burrito shop were off. So apparently he only lights those during his business hours. So, you know, at night, it doesn't cause the distraction that I thought it was, because I saw it coming in, I didn't see it going out. I looked for the other lights and they've turned those off. So looked like my discussion of the last meeting about those lights kind of disappeared. That's it.
Commissioner
I'm sorry. Happy Thanksgiving.
Commissioner Powers?
I have nothing but happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Commissioner Johnson?
I will not be here for the December 5th meeting.
Okay.
Other than that, happy Thanksgiving.
Commissioner Dorban?
I have nothing, but also happy Thanksgiving.
I have nothing, and the same thing. Our fine attorney, anything?
Same. Just the same well wishes of happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Brooke?
I'm not jumping on the bandwagon.
Not?
Okay.
Happy Hanukkah.
Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?